Well, I had my own 15 minutes of fame finding hackers in Splatoon 2 that, on Twitter, got almost as many views as some of my more popular videos, and it was such a big deal that it got picked up and put in videos by both Spawnwave and Etika, except for the part where they didn't credit me particularly well, so I'm not really getting that big of an influx of people coming to this channel from here, so I decided to cut my losses, sit down, and talk about some more Xenoblade. Hello everyone, I'm Luxon. Welcome to another video. This one isn't going to have any gameplay on screen because it involves both Xenoblade 1 and 2, and I haven't gotten a stock of Xenoblade 1 footage to use for videos yet, which is why you haven't seen any other Xenoblade 1 videos. That will change shortly because I'm starting my Monado Monday stream series very soon. Look out for an announcement of that very soon. We'll just go with very soon. Soon TM. Something like that. But there won't be anything on screen besides just that thumbnail, so feel free to tab away and go do something else while you're listening to me. Also, this is talking about whether or not the Shulk and Fiora in Xenoblade 2 are canon, so look out for not only the usual Xenoblade 2 spoilers this time through the end of the game, but also spoilers through the end of Xenoblade 1. Let's go. I didn't script this very well, in case you can't tell. Normally, I wouldn't be talking about anything related to challenge mode outside of my patch review, but they just had to add an actual cutscene explaining why Shulk and Fiora are there, and they didn't just give them to you as blades that are cameos. Since they're not just cameos like Cosmos and Telos, so I can't just write them off as, yeah, there happens to be a blade that is basically the same thing as Cosmos in Xenoblade 2's universe, I actually have to think about this stuff. Basically, I need to try to figure out whether or not it's possible for Shulk and Fiora to have come from a universe, a Xenoblade 1 universe, where their story took place the same way it had in the original game. I'm not necessarily saying that Rex and Co. meeting up with Shulk and Fiora is canon to Xenoblade 2's story, because it very obviously isn't. I can easily debunk that, because we'll soon see that the Shulk and Fiora in Xenoblade 2 come from a time after the end of their own game, and we know as a fact from a certain cutscene very near the end of 2 that the final battles of 1 and 2 take place basically at the same time. And, of course, you can access challenge mode as early as the beginning of Chapter 4 on a first playthrough, and basically at the beginning of the game as far as I know in New Game Plus, so clearly there's a time distortion. You could say that, oh, if the Napon Arcsage can transport people from different universes into his pocket dimension, even though the Xenoblade 1 universe is basically also a pocket dimension, which I might go into in another video sometime in the future, he can also transport people across time. I don't know. I'm not saying that Shulk and Rex meeting is canon to either game. I'm just questioning whether or not it's possible for the Shulk and Fiora to have come from a legitimate Xenoblade 1 universe. So we need to sort of talk about that. The first very obvious debunk a person could possibly make is that they can't be canon because Ham's Fiora and Shulk with the Monado are never in the party at the same time. By the time Fiora leaves, Shulk is still using the Junk Sword, and by the time she joins up again, not only is she in mecha form, but Shulk has the Monado too. So she's not even in the party at the same time as the Monado 1 ever. People have pointed out though that Shulk is surprised that the weapon summoned for him is the Monado. Remember, the Land of Challenge weapons aren't actually the weapons they had on the other side of the portal. The Arcsage summoned those to them. Fiora specifically mentions that they didn't have their weapons when they went through, so he summons new weapons that work a little differently. They can transfer power to them, so they work as a blade, and then if you look closely at her level 3, it looks like Fiora also has the ability to summon her knives to her, or materialize an extra pair out of nowhere, or something like that. I'm not even going to go into whatever that is, but Shulk is surprised that he gets the Monado. That implies that it wasn't the weapon that he had on him, or the weapon that he was using previously. If we go by the theory that I, again, can actually prove that they came from after the end of their story, it makes sense that Shulk will be surprised that, yes, not only does the Monado 1 still exist, but it's in my hands right now. So he'll be surprised that that's happening, but not so surprised as, oh my god, I never picked up the Monado before in my life, how am I supposed to use this? And, well, he's pretty competent at using it. He has access to Monado Cyclone as one of his specials, and, well, that's the last Monado art you learn as part of the main story. Plus, his level 4 is just straight up his finishing move on the final boss, so looks like he knows what he's doing a little bit. And again, he shouldn't be, like, out of practice or something with the Monados, because most likely, after the end of the game, if he's going to be using any weapon, it's going to be a replica Monado, and not going straight back to the junk sword. Sure, he might not have visions. That's another thing. His visions are from the Monado. They come from Zanza's power working through him when he's using the Monados 1 and 2, and they come from Alvis granting him just that ability whenever he's not using 1 or 2. When he's using the Monado 3, it's just because he's the master of the Monado. Same thing as Foresight. Shulk also has a post-battle conversation with Mithra that proves that Alvis is Ontos, so everyone who says that he isn't, concede. But, yeah, Shulk's Land of Challenge Monado just also has vision power. I don't think it's, like, on the level as any of Alvis's Monados. It's just a replica Monado that's a perfect replica of the Monado 1 and only the Monado 1, if it makes sense. You can also completely justify the fact that you can hurt every enemy with it because none of them are creatures of Bionis. Monado 1 can only not harm creatures of Bionis, which is basically just Hams, Hyantia, and presumably Napon. Never really gets a chance to test it out on Napon. I'm getting really sidetracked. Let's go into basically proving that they come from the end of the story. Now, if you're like me and are doing something in the background that prevents you from hearing the game audio when you're not in a cutscene, you're going to have missed a lot of these things because basically all of these points that I'm going to make come from dialogue lines that both Shulk and Fiora have. The Shulk post-battle dialogue with Mithra is one. First off, it proves, again, that Alvis is Ontos. It also proves that Shulk knows what the Monado actually is, and in fact, he has a line with Rex where he straight up mentions, yeah, it was made by a god. He doesn't refer to, no one ever refers to the Bionis and the Mechonis as gods in the story. They only refer to them as titans. So, pre-finding out anything about Zanza, Shulk would have said that it was wielded by the Bionis. It was wielded by one of the great titans of my world. He would not have said it was made by or wielded by a god. So him using the word god in that context implies he at least knows who Zanza is. Additionally, while Dunban and Ryan are the only ones that are mentioned, like, in a particularly not hard to miss fashion, all of the party members in Xenoblade 1, besides, I think, Ricky, are mentioned in a line of dialogue from either Shulk or Fiora. Now, Ricky obviously appears in the Hero Pond challenge mode thing, so he's not completely forgotten. I just don't think, off the top of my head, he's referenced by either Shulk or Fiora. But that's a moot point anyway, because the person who references Melia is Fiora. And Fiora is never in the party with Melia and not Ricky. She doesn't even meet the two of them until, like, the Fallen Arm, at which point she meets the two of them at the same time. So, if she knows who Melia is, she knows who Ricky is as well, so saying that it's from the middle of the story also doesn't work. Additionally, you can't just say, oh, it's an alternate universe where Fiora got through the Colony 9 attack fine and joined everyone else on their journey. Because she has a post-battle dialogue with Poppy that talks about having a mechanical body. And, you know, having a mechanical body was something that Fiora had during the story and something that she recovered from by the end of the story. So this basically has to take place with Fiora talking about her mechanical body in the past tense. It's not just, oh, they got Vanea or someone to retool her body so that she works the same way she did normally back when she was a Hams. No, this is straight up, I was a robot, but then I got better. Couple that with Shulk knowing the truth about the Monado, and you kind of get a pretty clear picture of this being post-game Xenoblade 1. There are a couple things that sort of throw a wrench into that, though, that I'm gonna have to go over. The first thing is Fiora has her long hair and not her shorter hair. If you remember, in the final cutscene, she does still have the short hair after having her body regenerated. And she asks Shulk whether he prefers the longer or the shorter hair. He says he prefers the shorter, but could go either way. It's the go either way part that's basically the only way to justify it. Because, oh, he could go either way, so, screw it, I'll just grow it out more so I don't have to worry about it. I don't know. If Shulk doesn't really care about what her hair looks like, just as he doesn't really care about how good the food she makes is, then why not just go back to what she was used to doing, I guess. I don't know. Through some of their dialogue, you can clearly tell that they're, like, actually in a relationship, which was never a thing that happened during the story of the first game, and it only was sort of hinted that, yeah, they're kind of together once she comes back and in the ending cutscene. So, if anything, this takes place a few months after the last cutscene of Xenoblade 1. Which is, it's kind of interesting. You can't really get any sort of idea about how the world has changed since then, or what their world post that game is like. Just that they're still happy. They're talking about all the other party members in the present tense, so they're presumably still alive. And that's about it. The other possible problem is they specifically mention that the Land of Challenge isn't like the Bionis or the Mechanis. That's a problem because the Bionis and the Mechanis don't exist anymore at the end of the game. There's this new landmass surrounded by an ocean, and you can sort of see the corpse of the Bionis' head next to just off the shore of New Colony 9. So, why don't they mention that it's not like their own world? I can guess that they were able to tell somehow that, yeah, this isn't our world, and it does make sense that they'd consider the Bionis and Mechanis to be different from their own world, or whatever the new world was, because it is explicitly mentioned that Shulk is making a new world and not resetting the old one into something new. That was literally his final choice he had to make with the Monado power. It's, do I let this world stagnate and start it over again, or do I make a new world? He made a new world. It makes sense that at least Shulk and the people close to him specifically would consider the new world at the end of that game to be a new world and not the Bionis and Mechanis, even if the corpses of the Titans are right there. So I'm guessing that it's, oh, we realize that we're not in Kansas anymore. This isn't where we came from. It's also not the other world that we know of, so this is a completely new place for us too. That's the way I choose to interpret it. It makes sense to me that way. Unfortunately, this does kind of hint at, no, the world's, the recreated Allrest at the end of Xenoblade 2 isn't Shulk's new world from the end of Xenoblade 1, which is kind of unfortunate. Even if I could totally buy that, yeah, we're gonna have to put Shulk and Rex together at some point. Let's take Shulk from the end of his game and put him together with Rex from an indeterminate point of his own story. We're gonna have to pull them from the future somehow to get Shulk and Fiora in a way that makes sense. So, I'm okay with time travel being a thing, but you'd think that the true heir to the Monado and the driver of the Aegis would have become knowledgeable to each other if they ended up in the same world somehow. It could be that, oh, they're just on different landmasses in the new world and they haven't, like, explored far enough away yet. I'm gonna probably choose to interpret it as that way, where Gramps flies everyone and all the Allrest Titans go and form up with one continent, and that the island New Colony 9 is on is a different continent, and they'll run into each other eventually once their people start exploring. Because if this Shulk came from the future, he'd probably know Rex if they came from the same universe. It's sad, but it kind of deconfirms something that me and a lot of people would have liked to see. I would want to see a sequel to both Xenoblade, like, make Xenoblade 3 a traditional RPG story. We don't need to worry about killing God or shoehorning too much sci-fi into it. Just let us explore this new world with a combination of older characters from those two games. Kind of deconfirms that that'll ever happen, but oh well, I guess. There's not really much we could do about it. It would have been another cool connection to have, but we've got the Ontos thing confirmed, and that's kind of the best I could have expected from this.
Yeah, I'm inserting this in after recording everything, because I only just realized that even if I interpret it that way, they still kind of can't be from the same universe, unless we just throw away everything in Challenge Battle non-canon, or just make Shulk and Fiora come from a different Xenoblade 1 universe than the one connected to Rex's, because even though they come from the New World, they can't enter All Rest normally, even though the New World would have to be All Rest, so clearly they're from different worlds. Rip my dream, I guess. I don't know.
But that's basically all the points against it I could really think of, and that includes ones that I've seen other people come up with before me, too. No, I don't think that Rex going into this little pocket dimension and meeting Shulk, who is also dragged in there, is actually canon to either of their stories. I actually don't think any of the DLC, besides the Torna expansion, or anything added post-release in free updates, is actually canon. New Game Plus is obviously not canon, so Blades, like all the Torna people, clearly non-canon. You can fight Akos with Akos. Doesn't really make any sense. New Game Plus is about breaking the story. Even Telos can't really be canon. A lot of Blade quests are actually also non-canon because canonically, they climb the world tree and reach the top and do all that in one go, and then the world tree blows up, so that's a thing too. Adonine's Blade quest, also non-canon. There are some things in the base game itself that are just straight up not canon, and that includes a lot of the DLC too. So no. Challenge Battle isn't canon to Xenoblade 2 or Xenoblade 1, but the Shulk and Fiora that show up in Challenge Mode are in fact a Shulk and Fiora that 100% could have resulted from the end of pretty much any way you could choose to interpret the ending of Xenoblade 1. And that's honestly a pretty comforting thing. While I don't think that they actually planned for Shulk and Rex meeting up like that to be something that actually happened in continuity with either of their universes, I do think that we can take this Shulk and Fiora and use it as a bit of a measuring stick to think of how some of the staff, at least, think they got along after the ending of their game. And by all accounts, it looks like their happily ever after is still going strong. And, you know, I don't know how much better I could have asked for. And until next time, and especially until the beginning of Monado Mondays, look out for an announcement video about that shortly. This is Luxon, signing off.